Yeah, cool. All right, good afternoon, everybody. We'll go ahead and kick it off. My name is Zaffis, and I'm here to talk about RedTeam Rumplestiltskin. Just a note, this is an entry-level talk at the end of the day, BSides conference. So if you've been in security for a while and you want to learn something cool, Jen's teaching the walkthrough for the Sans Hackfest, which will probably be more informative for you than this will. But thanks for coming out to watch it. Who am I? My name's Zach, Zach Zaffis. I work at ProCircular, security engineer there. Outside of that, security stuff. SecIC, essentially a chapter of SecDSM out in the Iowa City area. So if you're out that way, come check us out. We do essentially the same thing SecDSM does, but smaller scale because not as cool. Yeah. So why am I here? I'm going to tell you guys a bedtime story. It's one of my favorite stories, and it's an anecdote that I use in not only red teaming, but in security in general, and it revolves around Rumplestiltskin. Outside of the story, we're going to go over some basic concepts for anyone looking to break into red teaming specifically, but a lot of it's applicable to security, IT in general, but again, pretty base level talk. So get this slide out of the way first. Impostor syndrome, right? If you're in this industry and you hang out with people in the industry, everyone knows things you don't know, and it's daunting, I guess would be the best word, right? Like everyone's got something to teach you, so you should keep that in mind when you walk into them and meet them, and not let that affect you personally. I shouldn't be up here, right? Who am I? I'm just some guy. I do security stuff, But again, we all got something to teach each other, right? So that's why I'm here. The other thing is, don't let one bad experience, whether it's in the community or online or at work, set your own level of expectations. Don't let other people do that for you. Build that out for yourself. So to the meat of the story, the meat of the talk here. Rumpelstiltskin. So the story was originally recorded in 1812 by the Brothers Grimm. The story, there's been some research to the story itself saying that it's dated back, past 4,000 years or so. The research itself was kind of questionable, so who knows? But it's, essentially a story of Rumpelstiltskin, which translates from German to literally little rattlestilt. Back in those days, it was entertaining to go shake posts because Fortnite wasn't a thing. There wasn't a lot to do, so. But we can tuck in, and I'll kind of kick off the story here. I'm going to give a brief version since we're timed, but the story of Rumpelstiltskin. So there was a farmer, and he had a daughter, and she was an excellent human being. Smart, funny, clever, beautiful, and she could spin straw. And the guy, just kind of a land farmer, we're in Iowa, right? He made corn. Why not? And as all fathers do, he wanted to give his daughter the world. Wanted to provide everything he could for her. But he was a farmer, and this was, 4,000 years ago. Not exactly an easy thing for a farmer to do. So when he'd go out to town, he'd, talk his daughter up to everyone he could meet. Anyone that would, sit and listen for any period of time, Oh, she's beautiful, she's smart, she's funny, she's great. She can spin straw. Hell, she can spin straw so great, she can spin it into gold. And eventually that word got back around to the king of the area. And the king thought to himself, so, lady out there that can spin gold out of straw, huh? And he came knocking on the farmer's door. And again, this being 4,000 years ago, said, hey, I'm the king, so I'm taking your daughter. And he did. And he took this farmer's daughter, and he locked her in a room and filled it with straw and said, you are going to spin all this straw in this room into gold, and if you don't get it done by the morning, I'm going to chop your head off. This is a bedtime story. It is great for nightmares. And so, he shuts the door, takes off, and, 13-year-old girl, I'm sure, it's 4,000 years ago, sitting there just bawling, freaking out. She's dead. Of course she doesn't spin straw into gold. She has no idea what the king's talking about. Her dad's never brought this up to her. It's just his way of, really gratifying himself in his children. And the night starts to wear on, and the impending doom is kind of setting in, and going to die soon. So she starts freaking out, right? Flipping tables, kicking windows open, and screaming. And down on the street, I don't know, the street of the castle area, there's this little imply thing, right? Like gnarled little man. And he hears her. And he poofs himself magically up into her room. Says, hey, what's going on? And so she explains the story to him, if I don't spend all this stuff in gold, I'm going to die by the morning. And the little imply guy's like, oh, okay. Well, that's pretty terrible. I'll die. Kind of starts walking towards the door, and she said, well, wait, you're magic, right? You poofed yourself into this room. You can help. He says, I could probably help. What do you got? She says, well, I got this ruby ring. It's my grandma's ring. It's very sentimental. And in the magic times back then, sentimental things held a lot of value. You could get some good black magic out of it, right? So he says, all right, you give me that ring, and I'll spin this room into straw. So she does, and he does, and she goes to bed happy. The king wakes up, busts down the door, and goes, man, wow, you spun a whole room of straw into gold. This is an instant cash cow for me, right? And says, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take you and put you in a bigger room, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put more straw in it, and you're going to spin it into more gold. So, process repeats, right? She's sitting there, impending doom and dread, she's going to die. And she remembers the little, wilty man kicks the window open and starts screaming again, right? Imply dude, come help me. And so he hears and pops back into the room, and same situation again, right? I got to do all this straw into gold. What am I going to do? What else of value do you have? And she says, well, I have this pendant my mother gave me. She died years ago, and it's the last thing I have to remember her by. He said, great, again, sentimental value, good juju. We can make some black magic out of this. Let's do it. Spins the room into gold, takes off. Same situation, wakes up. King kicks the door in and goes, holy crap, I am so loaded. This is going to be excellent. So he takes her, and the third night puts her in the biggest room he has in the castle. Packs it floor to ceiling full of straw. Same deal, except this time he says, not only will I not kill you, I'm going to marry you, and I'm going to give you everything I have. Kind of a weird proposal, but whatever. And the situation ensues again. She starts howling and screaming. The imply dude pops back in, and she says, well, I had the ring and I had the necklace. Like, I don't really have anything else, right? The little imply guy goes, well, how about if you give me your firstborn baby? That'll work, right? She's, going to die in mere hours, and says, sure, yeah, that works, fine, whatever. Let's not die. And he spins this giant room into straw. Again, the king kicks the door open the next morning and goes, whoa, we're getting married. So they have a grand celebration, and, a year later or so, they father a child. Or they have a child. This baby, beautiful little boy, beautiful heir to the king's throne, right? And the mom, all she can do is just freak out, because she knows that this little imply dude's going to show up and snatch this baby at some day. And a week goes by, and she's still kind of freaking out. And a few more weeks go by, and she's freaking out a little less. And a couple months go by, and she's kind of forgotten about it at this point, because she's got this gorgeous kid, and she's the queen of this kingdom, and everything's rocking for her. Come the year of the child's first birthday, who is to show up at the door but this little imply guy again? This nice, juicy, sentimental connection to the baby. Give it a year to bake, right? So he walks up and says, hey, remember that thing we talked about, and you're going to give me that baby? Queen's like, I can't really do that. It's not really a thing, right? So she goes to the king and talks to the king, and the king's like, yeah, if he takes my baby, I'm going to kill you too and just get another wife and a new heir, because he's the king, why not? And so she's kind of left in this catch-22 of she gives up her baby or dies. So she comes back to the little imply guy and says, what can I do to get around? Like, you have to have another option. And he says, all right, it's your kid's birthday. I'm feeling kind of generous. I'll give you 3 days. And in those 3 days, if you can guess my name, you can keep the baby. She says, deal, of course. So he heads out. She starts thinking and writing down every name she can possibly think of, anything she can come with. And he shows up the first day, and she starts naming off names, Jeff, Jim, John, Joan, Ashley. He's just smiling and laughing and shaking his head. No. So day 1 goes by of wasting all the names she could think of. She spends the next night thinking of anything she possibly can. Day 2 comes around, same situation, right? Bob, James, Joe, whatever. Goes through a whole other list of names. Nothing. He's just laughing, giggling the whole time. So 3rd day comes around, and she spends the morning kind of just walking around the courtyard and, trying to catch her breath, think of something fresh, get out in the town, whatever. And she passes by the guard's house. And as she passes by the door of the guard's house, she hears one of the guards kind of telling a story from the night before, and he's just kind of hanging out and chatting with the guy. It's locker room talk, right? Oh man, I got so wasted last night. I was wandering around the forest. It was great. I came across this little cave thing, and there was a fire, and there's this really weird little raisin man dancing around, and he was singing this song about how he's going to make a baby for dinner the next day. And let me find the exact quote here, because I did pull the exact quote from the book. Let's see. Tonight, my plans I take. Tomorrow, the baby I bake. The queen will never guess my name, for Rumpelstiltskin is my name. And as the queen overhears this, she realizes it. She's like, dude, that has to be the Imply guy. Of course it is. It has to be, right? So she devises this kind of counter plan to wait for him to come, and she starts naming off all these names she can think of again, right? Stacy, James, Philip. He's laughing the whole time, and as the sun draws close to the bottom of the horizon, and he's gonna run off with her baby and bake him for dinner, she goes, you know what? Your name's Rumpelstiltskin. And he just stares at her for a second. And then he starts flipping out. How would you know that? You cheated, right? She said, you didn't give any rules to this besides 3 days and whatever names I could come up with. And, she's not wrong. So he loses. And the king says, get out or I'll kill you, because that's what the king does. And he freaks out. And he gets so mad that he slams his foot into the floor of the castle, right? This giant granite stone floor. And he shoves it so far into the ground that it gets stuck. And he has to pull his own leg off just to get out of the castle. Again, bedtime story for children. So that's essentially the story of Rumpelstiltskin, right? She guesses the name by overhearing it from someone, and she walks away clean. So how can this apply to red teaming specifically, or security? So let's kind of restructure things a little bit, right? So the farmer, let's say he's an IT director, right? And he's got a daughter who happens to work in IT. She's kind of security-minded. He appreciates it, wants to talk her up, get her a good job. The king's a CISO somewhere at big company X. And, he gets her a job and kind of tells that CISO that, she can spin gold, man. She'll do all the red teaming stuff in-house. She's amazing. It's the best thing ever. And she gets there and realizes she can't do this. I might be stretching for a talk here. It doesn't really have any applicability directly. It doesn't one-to-one. But the main takeaways of the story here, right? Rumpelstiltskin was the thing that had power for her. And that was the thing that released her from that tension, from that pending doom and death. But in reality, her spinning straw and being skilled in the basics of what she was doing is what got her there in the first place, that and her dad being a jerk. But with regards to red teaming specifically, there is no real Rumpelstiltskin. There's no way to spin gold. You just need to spin straw. So that's kind of what we're going to go over today, is learning how to spin straw. These are really the basics of red teaming. These are the basics of IT in general, right? Networking, firewalls, Linux, web applications, Windows, and troubleshooting. This is your spinning straw. This is your straw. This is your spindle. This is how you get it done. So with regards, just kind of top down from the list here. With regards to networking, we need to know what matters with networking. And networking is, from an enterprise perspective, this is where the meat and bones of business is nowadays, right? What businesses can we think of off the top of our heads that don't use a network or don't use the internet? There aren't many. I mean, there are some, but there aren't many. This is how the world works now. So fundamental understanding of networking is critical. Bread and butter of enterprise, plug things in and they go. Let's understand some basics of protocol levels. Protocols, they do change over time. Think WEP to WPA2, WPA3. But the basic, ISO layer of the protocols, those don't change that often. The basics are still there. We need to learn what the different protocols do and how they operate. We don't need to be subject matter experts on them, but we need to understand how they work, how that applies to what we're doing. Understanding some of the basics of networking in general. The OSI model is a good one. Pepperoni pizza, whatever that acronym is. What is it? Please do not throw away sausage pizza. Sausage pizza away. There we go. I knew it was pizza something. Again, you don't need to be a subject matter expert on the OSI model, but you need to understand how the different areas of it can break away and where you're going to be living depending on what you're attacking, right? From the OSI model on, you're going to start to get into more advanced levels of networking, things like VLANing, which, if you're not doing proper segmentation or ACLs within a business, your VLANs are essentially collision domains. It's not quite the same, but understanding how that works. From, again, a red team perspective, understanding some of the basics of attacking a VLAN. VLAN hopping, knowing that a number of different switches can, if you flood the VLAN too much, essentially turn themselves back into a hub, and now you have full network access. It's going to be a little disruptive, but hey, get you what you need. And then routing, right? Again, we don't need to be subject matter experts to start and build our foundation. Understanding the basics of routing and how pointing two things at each other with a specific protocol around it is where you're going to be, really getting into the goods. The last one on here, of course, is PCAPs with a sad face. PCAPs are excellent, but I know personally, as a newcomer, the first time I opened up a PCAP, it blew my mind. I had no idea what was going on. And this was after finishing like a networking book this big, right? It was just so much information. It was incredibly daunting. But knowing that you can pick certain information out of a PCAP is critical, These are all of the ways that the network kind of encapsulates and builds how we can operate as red teamers. At the edge of our network, firewalling. From a red team perspective, this is a little less fruitful nowadays. It used to be a lot easier to get around firewalls. They've gotten a little better. Firewall, there aren't very many like full-on bypasses for firewalls that you're going to find. They pop up every now and again. They're getting good. Bread and butter with firewalls tends to be misconfigurations. Again, the issue there is the firewall vendors are getting better at letting us not be dumb as blue team and defenders. And you have your ASA. You try and set up a rule that is a specific misconfiguration, and typically it's going to tell you, yeah, you can't do that. This is what it probably should look like. So unless you're going in, unless that blue team's going in and setting specific like shields down any rules, firewalls are going to be a little more difficult. But really just understand how they work and what they're for. Everyone knows how a firewall, like what a firewall is used for on the edge, blocking information and packets coming in and out, and filtering. Linux, it's a magical beast. It's been around forever. And everyone who uses Linux is just a complete nerd. We know this, right? Like, that's what they do. They get together and they talk about it. It's obnoxious. But learn it. Learn it and understand what its common uses are. Familiarize yourself with how the operating system works, how to traverse things, how permissions are set, how it can interconnect within the network to other things. Bread and butter with Linux stuff nowadays is IoT devices are embedded Linux 9 times out of 10. So when you hit things or when you see things like that in your red teaming, look for default credentials or hard-coded credentials. Those are great, and they come across pretty regularly. IoT, if a vendor's not setting it up or they're setting it up in-house, set it and forget it, and that's kind of what they're sold on. So you can get some good mileage out of IoT stuff. Outside of that, yeah, again, familiarize yourself, right? Know how to get around in Linux when you hit a Linux box and what you should do. It shouldn't be a stopping point for you. Web applications is a huge topic and multiple talks of itself. But know some of the basics of it. What is a web app? You know, when somebody says web app, it's a website that connects to a lot of stuff, right? It goes from the internet usually to other devices to pull information and serve that out. An application on the web. Bread and butter here are things like SQL, find injection points that you can, cross-site scripting. Again, the level of depth and breadth of web applications is ridiculous. Jared had a talk 2 talks ago here that was like mind-boggling awesome with remote code execution. It was mind-numbing. It was so complicated. The book for web applications is about the same size as the CISSP book. Like seriously. And the CISSP is what, 8 domains? Like you can do web apps forever. It's just good stuff to know. Windows, right? The base of pretty much every enterprise now, ever, at this point. But nobody knows how it works, really. Like, Microsoft experts give you different opinions constantly. It's been built on top of itself since like 3.5, which is wildly evident now in Windows 10 with essentially 2 desktop environments on the same system. And, you know, this is building on top of itself is a huge boon for red teamers, right? A lot of attacks that revolve around things like DLL injection or DLL proxying, you can find because you open Word and it looks for a DLL that hasn't existed in 8 years. But the process exists to look for it because it just keeps getting added on top. That's a good point, right? I can get DLL injection right from Windows thing called Word that everyone has because word processing is what business is. So outside of that, familiarize yourself with the operating system. I'm sure most of you have grown up on Windows or grown up using Windows. It's a pretty base-end operating system that we all know at this point. Understanding the basics of the operating system. Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked now. Know you're good. If you're blue teaming, this is critical. You know, baselining, making sure you know what's running on the systems that you own. Because the first time an incident happens and you have to go in and like do incident response, SVC host is running, oh my God, dude, there's like 16, we're pwned. It happens every time. But from a red team perspective, if you have that time to live on the land and to monitor the machine that you're on, if you can build your own baseline, you know what their good is supposed to look like, you can operate and live off the land on that system itself. And that helps you to really blend in. Outside of that, PowerShell. Dude, PowerShell is amazing. It is so incredibly powerful. It is too powerful, and as a blue team, they should be restricting it to pretty much nobody. Like, nobody should have access to this. It's ridiculous. Troubleshooting. This is not only IT, or not only security, but IT just in general. Troubleshooting, you need to learn to troubleshoot. It's critical thinking, thinking outside the box, whatever you want to call it. But the key here is to build yourself a process that works for you, right? Everyone learns differently. So build something that you can work and focus on yourself, and then you can apply under pressure. For me, my example is the 50-50 rule, and I learned this in engineering. It's if you have a problem that's presented to you, immediately cut it in half. So, the user comes kicking down the door and goes, the internet's off. It's not, dude, I'm watching YouTube right now. So cut it in half, 50-50. The internet's not off. I know I can focus specifically on the inside of the building at this point. Again, I'm on the same switch as Sally, who kicked the door open, telling me the internet's off. So I can now cut the switch off and start looking deeper in, port-wise, yada, yada, yada. But this is something that I've learned and I've repeated over time. And so when I have to use it under stress, it just happens. And that's the best way. When you apply this to the red team, you pop a box and you haven't been on the system yet, you have no idea what's going on. You don't know if there's monitoring. You don't know, you have no idea. You may have seconds to get something done or something pulled, or you might just drop the connection. Like, it just happens. But practicing is the only way to get better at troubleshooting. And the only way to practice is really to get in the trenches, which is unfortunate, but fortunate, I guess. But those are the basics, right? Like those handful of things, build those out, and you can red team, you can blue team, you can do security. All of the vernacular and all of the standards that come on top of it are all things that can be learned, right? That's the ISSP book will give you a handful of those things. Yeah. Thanks for coming to my talk. I'm just kidding. Let's focus in more, right? That was it. I moved fast, right? Let's focus in more and figure out like where we can learn these things, right? If we're all trying to figure this out, books are a great place to start because they are written about literally everything. That's what they're for. Great places for books. We'll get to. I have a whole bunch of resources that I just threw up on GitHub. So I'll have that slide at the very end. You can just take a look at it. But books, online resources, right? Cybrary has free stuff. YouTube has all the things. More to the point with getting your hands dirty, CTFs, right? Again, I'm at the end of the day, so I can't say go run over and play the CTF because it's over, essentially. But CTFs are a great way to get your hands on things that you wouldn't have the opportunity to without going to jail. So do it, right? If you're going to a conference and they have a CTF, jump in there. You don't have to know everything about it. And then conferences, right? There's trainings galore. Every conference has a training. Books specifically, again, everywhere and every topic possible. For us, O'Reilly, us in the technical industry, the O'Reilly stuff is great. It can be a little dry. It's not quite a textbook, but it's damn close. But if you want something a little more lighthearted, a little more written by tech people for tech people rather than like a technical manual, no starch books are fantastic. I probably have more no starch books that I've acquired from Humble Bundles than I will ever read. Outside of that, anything for dummies. I know it sounds terrible, but they're actually really good crash courses, and they usually have some good applicable like examples in them. So, you know, if you're feeling, again, imposter syndrome, right? If you're feeling a little self-conscious about it, buy them on Amazon. Nobody will have to see you in Barnes & Noble checking out. Did Barnes & Noble still exist? I don't even know. But really, for dummy books are great. There's Networking for Dummies. Fantastic book. I bought it back in college, and I still use it every now and again. Because it's for dummies. But yeah, again, more books are on the resource slide itself. Online resources, yeah, dude, everything's on the internet. That's what the internet's for. Again, I have a handful of things that I find useful as a red teamer on the resource list. It's by no means anywhere near an exhaustive list at all, because internet. CTFs. These are, again, a great place to get your hands dirty. You can jump in on learning cryptography, learning network analysis, learning steganography. Anything that you can dream of, there's usually a CTF around it. Again, I'll have resources at the end here, but you can do a CTF anytime. It doesn't have to be at a conference. There are ongoing ones. And ongoing training CTFs too. Again, we'll get to that. Ask questions. You know, a lot of InfoSec or technical people tend to be a little introverted. You know, we like digging into stuff in our basements. But if you can sit down at there'll be a starter table. There almost always is, or a starter team. If you can sit down and just ask to sit down. You don't even have to ask the team if it's going to make you uncomfortable. Just sit and kind of inculcate yourself with what they're doing and listen. And I guarantee you're going to pick stuff up. I have learned so much from CTFs. It's incredible. And then conferences, right? BSidesIowa, you're here. BSides KC is next weekend. BSides conferences, again, tend to be low cost and great value in training. That might be debatable after this talk. We'll see. Another great one, you know, there's the bigger cons, DerbyCons and DEF Cons. And they're good too. They have value, but for the same price of going out to Vegas once a year, you can hit like 3 or 4 of these and get comparable, if not better, training. Sorry, DEF Con. Circle City Con, it's in Indianapolis. It's like a 7-8 hour drive from here. We're over in Iowa City, so. But fantastic conference. They call it free training. I think you pay $5 to reserve a seat, but if you show up and no one's there, you can just sit in it. And they're, world-renowned people coming to train. It's awesome. Fantastic LobbyCon. I've met a number of amazing people in the industry there. And again, it's right Indianapolis. It's right here. It's awesome. They have a fantastic CTF as well. GurCon, that one's a little more blue team focused. Same with BurCon. So if you're looking to really break into red, might not be as great for you. But learning blue stuff is going to be a good way for you to learn to get around blue stuff, right? But again, BurCon's free, and it's essentially the little brother of GurCon. Wild West Hacking Fest, bread and butter, right? Like that's, Black Hills puts it on. If you want to do red team stuff, go to that one. It's really good. And then there is a soon-to-be DraftCon that's coming in the works to replace DerbyCon. And again, DerbyCon was, on the larger side. I do have a note in here, conferences, SecIC, SecDSM, more so SecDSM. They have a black badge. What's the name for it? Like scholarship, I guess? Yeah, scholarship. Where you can, so both SecIC and SecDSM go out to these conferences and participate in the CTFs to win black badges. For those that don't know, black badges for a conference is lifetime entry, just free. Like you participate, you win, and you get to go again forever. So what SecDSM and SecIC, I'll just stop saying SecDSM has done is they send a team out to win these conferences, bring those badges back, and then you can go and apply to go to one of these conferences on a free ride on that black badge for SecDSM on the team. It's a great way for not only them to give back to the community, but for you as somebody who is hopefully trying to break into this awesome industry, it's a great way to get to one of these conferences at a seriously reduced price. Learn all the things. Knowledge is power, and our industry, IT in general, will always change forever. Knowledge is half the battle, right? But soak it up. Learn everything you can, and I'm a big fan of learn by doing. That's how I learn best. Some of you might be readers, some of you might be video watchers. Everyone's a little different. But I personally feel that getting hands-on with things tends to help you learn it a little bit better. And again, that might just be my bias. Community. Community is huge, right? This is why we're here at BSides, is to kind of help foster that community as well, right? SecDSM, SecIC, getting in with people that are in this industry, sharing knowledge with each other, that's enormous. And really, have fun with what you do. There's a lot of bad out there in what a lot of us do, both red and blue, and it can be kind of rough sometimes to think about like what we're doing, right? You're going in to hack a bank, or grandma might have an account at, or a hospital that you had one of your kids at, and you'd like kick the doors down and walk out as domain admin in 12 minutes. That's hard to live with some days. Like, that sucks, right? And as a blue teamer, then I have to go in and read that to them like, hey, we destroyed all of your stuff. That sucks for them too, right? And then they have to try and sell that to their C-suite and make money to get, or not make money, get budget to apply to that stuff. That's rough, dude. And we're the good people trying to do it, right? Like, there's other people kicking the doors down because they want that money. And they're going to get it however they want to. That sucks. That's why we're here, right? Build the community and share. And I kind of lied, right? Like, I said names didn't matter. They kind of do matter. Like, that sounds fun, right? Like going waterboarding in Guantanamo Bay. I would totally be down for that. Except I know what both of those are, and that's not going to be fun. So kind of to wrap this all up, right? Names do matter. Tools matter, right? They come and go. They're not going to make you a hacker or make you awesome, right? Bro, I got Kali Linux. I can hack all the things. No, Kali's just a tool set. It just wraps it up and makes it fast. That's all it does. It's just tinfoil. There's no black magic to it. the fundamental knowledge. It only grows. The more you learn that stuff and the more you practice it, that's where you're going to get good. So, real quick, ways that we can find our Rumpelstiltskins, right? Because, again, the tools, they're going to speed things up for you. And anyone in the industry now, red teaming, this is kind of more up to your speed rather than the previous stuff. Where you can learn about new tools, social media, podcasts, cons, and CTFs, right? Social media, Twitter, curate your Twitter. Twitter is really fun for shit posting, I'm not gonna lie, but if you wanna have like a dedicated feed, specifically for InfoSec, because we shit post a lot, set a separate account out, right? Like curate that. How can you find people? That gets onto the other kind of stuff, right? Like back to the GitHub and things like that, and we'll get there. But Slack, right? Community. That's another big thing, right? We have SecDSM has a Slack. SecIC has a Slack. Get in there, ask questions, read stuff. You don't even, just lurk. That's cool. Some notes though with Twitter, like thought leaders, that's a big term in my book. That's the no-no. Like that's, if you're calling yourself a thought leader, that's cool. Cool. But just because you have a bunch of Twitter followers, like that doesn't give you any breadth or depth of knowledge in the field. You just got a lot of Twitter followers, whatever. So take that with a grain of salt. Just be cautious of who you're listening to. Huggin' and Muggin', Hugin' and Muggin'. Brandon Murphy at Zoom Equipped gave an awesome talk at SecDSM. I believe we recorded one at SecIC as well. But it's a tool that you can go out and essentially look for trends in things, websites, web feeds, RSS. You can tune it for Twitter and find out about new tools and stuff like that. Or if you're on the blue team side, find out about defensive things, you know, proof of concept codes that have been released that you may have vulnerabilities for. But, you know, check out the SecDSM, SecIC YouTube channels. It's a really good talk. Podcast, these are some of my favorites. Malicious Life, ISC's Daily Stormcast is good just to kind of keep yourself fresh on what a larger net is viewing in the world at, you know, kind of real time, daily-ish. Dope Panics by Unit 42, a great one. Darknet Diaries, Recorded Futures is good. Anything on here is good. Black Hills InfoSec, again, if you're looking for red team stuff, is awesome. And that actually is the end of my talk. If you want to snap that, I'll put the slides up on slide post or whatever, so you guys can have a link to it. But that is a list of pretty much everything in the slide deck, you know, bullet pointed with good information that you can get cheap, if not free. And a ton of red team resources are in there as well. So that's it. Any questions? It's not really talking at you. No? All right. So I think I got some time left. I'll just sit here and sip awkwardly. Thank you.